We continue now at the top of Daf Pei Aleph Amud Aleph and Meseches Gittin. This is Gittin Daf 81a. On the previous summit, the Gemara was discussing the case at the end of the Mishnah where a husband and a wife get divorced, and following the divorce, they claim that the divorce is not effective because they were given the reverse documents. And Rabbi Eliezer in the Mishnah, he makes a distinction. He says if they make this claim immediately following the divorce, then they're believed. But if they make this claim and there's been a time delay, so then they are not believed. And there was a machlokas amoraim on the previous summit, what is considered to be immediate and what's considered to be a time delay. And Shmuel says immediate means that they're still dealing with the actual gerushin, and a time delay means that if they finish the proceedings of the gerushin and then later they make this claim, that's when they are not believed. And so the Gemara asked on Shmuel's opinion from the phrasing of Rabbi Eliezer, because Rabbi Eliezer, the way he phrased it was that if there's a time delay, they're not believed because they can't make the second husband lose out. Now, if time delay means that they just finished up the proceedings of the divorce, who says there even was a second husband? Why is there even a second husband being discussed? And so the Gemara now answers, Zechus haru'uya l'sheni. According to Shmuel, what we'll say is, the Mishnah doesn't mean the second husband is going to lose out. It means that the potential for this second husband, that's going to be lost. Rashi explains, Zechus haru'uya mishayatzasam ilifnei ha'edim, meaning, when she leaves from in front of the witnesses, bechezkas megureshes, with a chazak, with the presumption that she's divorced, that the divorce was effective, so zachsa linasei l'sheni. She now is zocha, she's able to marry a second individual, and this first husband is not allowed to make the second individual, that potential second individual, lose out. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Kasav legarish es ishto v'nimlach. Let's say a person wrote a get to divorce his wife, but then he changed his mind, and he decided not to use it. Beis Shammai omrim posla min ha-kahuna. Beis Shammai say she is now disqualified from the kahuna because he began the process of divorce, even though she's not actually a divorcee. She is still disqualified from being with a Kohen. Beis Hillel omrim, Beis Hillel say, Afa pi shenasnu lo al tanai. Even if he gave her the get on a condition, v'lo nasa ha-tanai, but the condition was not fulfilled, lo posla min ha-kahuna. She is not disqualified from the kahuna because she's not actually divorced. And the Gemara says, Shalach le Rav Yosef breder Rav Menashe midavil l'Shmuel. Rav Yosef, the son of Rav Menashe midavil, sent to Shmuel the following: Yilamdeinu Rabbeinu, teach us our Rebbe. Yotza olav kol ish ploni kohen kasav get leishto. Let's say there was a rumor that spread that so and so was a kohen, wrote a get for his wife. V'yosheves tachtav u'mishamshaso, and yet she's with him. She still remains married to him. And mahu, what's the halach in such a situation? So Shalach le, he sent back to him the following answer: Teitze, they have to be divorced. She has to separate from him. V'hadavar tzarich b'dika, but the matter requires investigation. And the Gemara says, Mahi, what does it mean that we require investigation? What are we investigating? If you're going to say that the investigation is, are we mevatel a kol? In other words, we have a rumor over here that he wrote a get for his wife, and so the rumor has spread out, therefore that's a reason why she should have to divorce him, because he's a Kohen, and Kohen's not allowed to be married to a divorcee. She has to separate. So on the one hand, we could say that we're allowed to be mevatel that kol. We're allowed to tell people to be quiet and no longer say that. Or are we not mevatel the kol? Maybe that's the suffix, that's why it's tzarech b'dika. But the Gemara says, V'nardoi asri de Shmuel, but Nardoi was the area of Shmuel. Over Nardoi lo mevatli kol, and in Nardoi they would not be mevatel a kol, so it should be obvious that there is a problem over here. And so the Gemara instead says the investigation is eladi karu l'nesina ksiva. The investigation is, do people refer to nesina as ksiva? Meaning to say that the case over here specifically was, the rumor went out that this particular person who was a Kohen, he wrote a get for his wife. There's no rumor that he gave the get to his wife. The rumor is that he wrote the get. And so therefore we have to see, when people say wrote, does that actually mean give? Do people understand that to mean that the rumor now is that he gave a get to his wife? Or no, it's just that he wrote the get to his wife. If there's a rumor that he gave a get to his wife, so then that really is a problem, and she has to leave her husband. But if the rumor simply is ksiva, so then that wouldn't be a problem. That's the bedika, that's the investigation we need to do. But the Gemara says, "V'chi karu l'nesina ksiva, l'ksiva guva milo kari l'ksiva." Even if they call nesina ksiva, even if they call giving a get writing a get, but writing a get is also called writing a get. There's still a suffix over here. It's not clear from the rumor whether he just wrote the get or gave the get. And the Gemara says, yes, the imiglia milsa de karu l'nesina ksiva. If it's true that people call nesina ksiva, that people refer to giving a get as writing a get, so dilma nasan ka'amri, so therefore we do have that concern. We have the concern that maybe he really gave it. That's what people are saying, that he gave the get, and therefore we would be strict. But the Gemara still continues, Teitze, so, but she has to leave her husband, she has to go out from the marriage just because of this rumor. V'yomer Rav Ashi, but didn't Rav Ashi say, Kol kola debasar nisuin lo chashinan lei, that in general, when rumors come out after a marriage, we don't pay attention to those rumors. Here she's already married to him. Why are we paying attention to such a rumor and making them separate? And the Gemara says to that, "My teitze nami teitze misheni." You're right. When it says teitze over here, it doesn't mean that she has to leave the first husband. It means if she goes ahead and marries a second husband who happens to be a Kohen, there already, since the rumor came before that point in time, we're going to make her separate from that second husband. But the Gemara continues, "Im kain, if so, atamotzi laz al banav shel rishon." If you just separate her from the second husband also, but you're essentially saying she was divorced, and now you're going to be spreading rumors about any children she had from the first husband, because people will say that the first marriage was not legitimate, because we see that she was a divorcee. And the Gemara says to that, "Kevan de misheni hu de mafkinan la, umei rishon lo mafkinan la." Since we forced her to leave the second husband, but we have not forced her to leave the first husband, so asi lameimar samach lemisa gersha. So people will just say, yeah, it's true, there was a divorce from the first husband, and that rendered the rest of that marriage not good, but that happened samach lemisa. Right before the first husband died, there was a divorce, and therefore she does have the status of a divorcee, but it did not affect any of her children from the first husband. It only affected from the second husband. That's what people will say, so we're not really being motzi laz, we're not causing rumors to spread about the children from the first husband that was a Kohen. And we will take a look at Rashi over here. Ish Ploni Kohen, so-and-so who's a Kohen, Maisa Bolafanav. There was an incident. Shakasav Kohen Lagarish Asishto Vyotza Kol Ba'ir Alkach Shakasav Laget, that a Kohen wrote a get to divorce his wife. There was a rumor about this, that he wrote this get. Mahu, what's the halacha? Mimafkinan loes lamine, mishum kala shelo yomru girsha v'echzira. V'nimsa Kohen, machzer grushasa. Do we force them to divorce? We force them to separate because there now is a rumor. And people are going to say otherwise. People will say that he divorced her, and then he remarried her. And a Kohen, of course, is not allowed to marry a divorcee, can't remarry his wife who he divorced. So the ruling was that she should go out, she should leave the marriage because of the rumor. But before we actually make them separate, so we have to investigate the matter, we shouldn't issue this ruling without investigating. So then the Gemara had asked, what are we investigating? If we're investigating the imivatalin kala, maybe we're investigating whether we're allowed to quash this rumor. Are we allowed to quiet the people of the city? We're able to stop this rumor from spreading. Then that's what he was saying, that if we can make such an investigation and we can see whether and if we're able to see whether we can quiet this rumor, so then we won't force her to leave her husband. But the Gemara then said that's not true. V'nahardoi lo mevatli kol it. Nahardoi, we wouldn't be mevatel a rumor. Lo hayu noagin dayone ha'ir l'shaskom and nehachshad shelo yotziu kol shemachzikim yedei over aveira. In Nahardoi, the custom was not to quiet down rumors, because then other rumors would go out that the courts are helping out people who did aveiras. They're quieting rumors. In other words, they're helping out these people who committed transgressions. That's what we say, that in Surah they were mevatel kol. That's what we say in Parak HaMegarish. In Surah they were mevatel rumors, but in Nahardoi they wouldn't do that. And so then the Gemara said, no, we have to investigate the ikaru l'nesina ksiva. We have to see if people refer to giving a get as ksiva of a get. In Regilin ba'ir likros l'nesina ksiva have a kol. If people call nesina ksiva, then we have a real rumor over here. Sharei omrim shekasav lavai kasav nasanu. There, everyone is saying he wrote her a get, and that really means he gave her a get. The ikaru l'nesina ksiva, because that's what they refer to nesina as. They refer to it as ksiva. But then the Gemara continued, "V'lo karu l'nesina ksiva ein zekol, v'lo yachshadu b'machzer grushaso." If they do not call nesina ksiva, so then there's no problem, there's no rumor, and there's no issue over here. Sharei lo yatsa kol shenasan. There's no rumor that he gave. Ella shekasav. It's just a rumor that he wrote it. But the Gemara then asks, 1 second. Uparchina. The Gemara then asks, Nehi nami to karu l'nesina ksiva. Even if they call nesina ksiva, amay mafkinan labachi. That's a reason why she has to separate from him. V'chi l'chsiva gufa milo karu l'ksiva. But don't they call writing? They also refer to writing as writing. So there's no clear rumor that he gave a get. There's a rumor that says that he wrote a get. That might mean he gave it. That might mean he just wrote it. Uman leimalan dehai kasav the ka'amri nasanu. How do we know that the kasav is nasan? Dil maksiva bi'almu. Maybe it's just ksiva. Umeshaninan. And then the Gemara answered, Imiglia milsa sheragilim b'nei oyer likros l'nesina ksiva. If it is true that people refer to nesina as ksiva, afal gavda l'ksiva l'chud nami karu ksiva. Even though ksiva is also called ksiva, machmarinan, we would be strict. Lamechash l'kala, we'd be concerned about the rumor. We would say that it really means that he wrote it and gave it. And then actually we would say that she has to separate because of the concern of the rumor. And then the Gemara had asked, but why do we even care about the rumor called Kala de Basar Nisuin? Anytime you have a rumor after marriage, we're usually not concerned about it. Even though in Hamagarish it says that we are concerned about rumors. The Tanan Yatzashma V'Yir Mekudeshes Leploni Mekudeshes V'Asur Li Nasi La'achar At Shitin Lo Soploni Get. Case, for example, is, let's say a rumor goes out that she had a kedushin with somebody, so we say she can't marry someone else because of the rumor until she gets a get from the person that there was a rumor that she's married to that person. But even that's only true if the rumor goes out before she married someone else. But if she already got married, so we're not concerned about some rumor from previous times. Here you have a woman who's married to this Kohen for years already. Just because there's a rumor that there was a divorce, now we force a separation. Hakala de Basar Nisuin, who isn't this going to just be a kol after marriage? And then the Gemara said, "My teitze nami teitze misheni." It just means she leaves the second husband. In Meis Kohen Zev and Asa Kohen Acher, meaning if this Kohen died and she married another Kohen, teitze there we would force a divorce. Sharei Yotzala Kol Grusha Zeh Kamashanim, because there's already been a rumor that she's a divorcee for many years. Uparchina, and the Gemara asked on that, Vareata Motzi Laz Al Bonav Shal Rishon Lomar Chalolim Heim. But are you now causing rumors about the children from the first husband? Now people will say they're disqualified from being part of the Kahuna. They're Chalolim. Sharei Hotziua Min Hasheni. In other words, everyone will see that she's been forced to leave the second husband because she is a divorcee, and therefore there must have been problems with the first husband as well. And the Gemara said to that, not an issue with the first husband. People will just say that divorce took place close to the death of the first husband and didn't affect the children. People will say that's why she's only being separated from the second husband. There really was no issue with the first husband until the very end of the marriage. That's not going to cause any rumors when it comes to the children from the first husband. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabba bar bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi. Rabba bar bar Chana says that Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi, Bo rei shelo kedoros harishonim doros hachronim. Come and see that the later generations are not as great as the earlier generations. Doros harishonim Beis Shammai. The early generations, that refers to Beis Shammai, like in our Mishnah, where the Beis Shammai is so strict when it comes to Yuchsin that they say that she's disqualified from Kahuna just because of the writing of a get. And Doros ha'achronim Rabbi Dosa. The later generations is Rabbi Dosa. The Tanya, as we learned in a Brisa, Shvuyo chelos b'truma divrei Rabbi Dosa. Even if you have a woman who's taken captive, let's say she was married to a Kohen, but we still say she's allowed to eat truma. She's not disqualified from the Kahuna, even though she was taken captive. Amar Rabbi Dosa, and Rabbi Dosa says, "V'chi ma'asallah Ravi, what did this Arab even do to her? Just because he fondled her breasts, paslim in Kahuna, is that a reason to disqualify her from the Kahuna?" So you see, Rabbi Dosa, he's much more lenient when it comes to this issue, these issues of Yuchsin. V'yamar Rabba bar bar Chana, Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi, and Rabba bar bar Chana says that Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi, Bo re'ei shelo kedoros harishonim doros ha'achronim. Come and see that the later generations are not like the earlier generations. Doros harishonim achnisin peirosein derech traximon. The early generations, they would bring their fruits in through the main entrance, kadei l'chayven b'maiser, specifically in order that they be chayven meiser. And Doros ha'achronim, the later generations, they do the exact opposite. Machnisin peirosein derech gagos v'derech karfifos. They bring their fruits in through the roofs and through the enclosures, in order that they be exempt from having to take off meiser. The Amar Rabbi Yanai, because Rabbi Yanai says, Ein hatevel mischai b'meiser ad sheyira pnei habayis. Tevel is not chayv in meiser unless it sees the face of the house. It really has to come through the main entrance, and the later generations would try to avoid the obligation. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Biarti hakodesh min habayis. It talks about the fact that I've taken care of everything that is kodesh. I've gotten rid of it, so to speak, from the house. I've taken care of all of my meiser obligations. But Rabbi Yochanan says, Afilu Chatzar Kovas, even if it's brought into the courtyard, even the Chatzar, that is able to be Koveya to establish the obligation for Meiser. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, V'yachlu b'sharecha v'saveyu, and they're going to eat in your gates and be satisfied. We understand that to mean that even the courtyard can create the chiyuv of Meiser for Tevel. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Hamegarish esishto, if somebody divorces his wife, Vilona imo bepundaki, and then she stays with him at an inn, Beis Shammai omer me'enot tzricha heimenu get shein. sheni. Beis Shammai say she doesn't require a second get. We don't assume that they had relations; they had another kedushin. Beis Hillel omrim sricha himenu get sheni, but Beis Hillel say she is required to receive from him a second get. Amosai, when is this true? Bisman shenisgarshim in anesuin. That's only if they're divorced from the suin, meaning they were fully married. Then they got divorced. Then they stayed together. Then we say there's a concern. Umodim, however, they both admit, both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel admit, bin esgarshim in Eirison, if the divorce was only from the stage of Eirison when she was betrothed him, she'ein tzricha himenu get sheni, then she definitely does not need a second get from him, mipnei she'ein libo gaspa, because he's not yet comfortable with her. And the Gemara says, Amar Rava bar bar Chana, Rabbi Yochanan, Rava bar bar Chana says that Rabbi Yochanan says, Machlokis b'shira'ua shenivala. The whole machlokis is when it was seen that there was an act of relations. Rashi explains, b'shira'ua shenivala. They saw that there was relations. Beis Shammai savri adam osa bilaso bilasnus. Beis Shammai, the reason why they don't require second get is because they assume that relations might have just been an act of znus. It wasn't an act of kedushin. V'chol kama de lo amar hareini boa l'shem kedushin. As long as the husband doesn't proclaim, doesn't declare that the act of relations is for kedushin, lo amrinan l'shem kedushin ba. We don't say that it was l'shem kedushin, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Pei Aleph Amud Beis.